Hello, we're back with Chapter 3 on Supply and Demand, Lecture 4. We just finished up talking about demand, and now we're going to talk about supply. And the nice thing about this model is that supply and demand were pretty similar. The only major change between supply and demand is the relationship between the two variables. Other than that, they are pretty similar in how they work. Supply, like demand, is a function. It relates two variables, the price of an item with the amount of an item that a seller is willing and able to sell during a particular time period. Supply is a relationship between price, and again, P stands for price, just like it did for demand, and the amount that a seller is willing and able to sell, which we're going to call the quantity supplied. So just like the quantity demanded is the amount that consumers are out there trying to buy, quantity supplied is the amount that sellers are offering for sale. And just like with demand, quantity supplied, the quantity depends on price as well. Supply, again, like demand, is a statement about seller's intentions. So it's not the actual amount that's being offered for sale, that's the quantity supplied. This simply is the intentions of the sellers. So at every possible price, it tells us what the sellers will do. It's not a statement about the amount sellers are offering to sell. That's the quantity supplied. So again, demand and quantity demanded are different. Supply and quantity supplied are different. And just like with demand, there's a willingness to pay, suppliers' intentions are driven by the willingness to sell. WTS. And this is the least amount the least amount. The least amount someone is willing to accept as payment to sell a good or service. And we'll find out later on in Chapter 4, this also is a measurement of what it costs to make that item, because the least amount you're willing to sell it is the amount that would just cover the cost of producing it. And like demand, there is a law of supply. Again, this is more of a hypothesis, but it works pretty good for most cases. The higher the price, the larger the quantity supplied, and the lower the price, the smaller the quantity supplied. Again, assuming all the variables are constant, ceteris paribus. So if the price goes up, that's an inducement for sellers to sell more. It's more profitable, and so the quantity supplied will go up. And when the price goes down, less profitable, less of an incentive to sell, the quantity supplied is going to go down. And again, this holds if no other variables change much, and that is our ceteris paribus assumption. So this right here is the law of supply. And so again, we looked at Matteo and Hannah on the buying side. Let's look at them on the selling side. Let's assume that both Matteo and Hannah, in their spare time, can produce handmade guitars, maybe in the workroom or their basement or their garage. And at various prices, they would spend more time, at higher prices, they would spend more time producing these guitars because they are more profitable. There's an opportunity cost of using your time for production. You could be doing something else with your time. And so to entice manufacturers, sellers, producers to produce more, sell more, the price would have to go up. So here, let's look at Matteo first. And let's say that at $200, that's not willing to cover his opportunity cost. And therefore, Matteo is not going to spend any time making these guitars. If the price of the guitars are $300 per guitar, then Matteo has decided he's going to spend enough time to make one guitar. This might be per month. At a price of $400, then Matteo would spend more time because it's more profitable. It's worth more of his time to spend making guitars if the price is higher. If the price increases to $500, then Matteo would spend time to make 3. Price goes to $600, Matteo will make 5. $700, Matteo will make 7. So the higher the price, the more production you would get from Matteo. Over here we have our graph here. We put price on the vertical axis and we put the quantity, this time quantity supplied, on the horizontal axis. And simply plot the numbers. So at $200, right there, Matteo's not going to make any, and again, that's 0. If the price rises to $300, then Matteo would make 1. Price is $400, Matteo would make 2. $500, Matteo would make 3. At $600, Matteo will make 5. At $700, Mattel would make 7. There's actually two slopes here. So initially it's rising this fast right here. Use a color pencil for Mateo. And then kind of falls this way as Mateo tends to make more now at each increase in price. And this would be now the supply that comes from Mateo. Supply is upward sloping, most cases. There are some cases where it might be vertical, could be horizontal, but in most cases it's going to be upward sloping. The only difference, the main difference between supply and demand is that demand is downward sloping. At any price now, we can find the quantity supplied. So if the price is $300, you go out to hit the supply line, drop a line straight down, and that tells us the quantity supplied is 1. These are the quantity supplied down here. If the price rises to $400, we move along the same supply line, and the quantity supplied would go up from 1 to 2. There's no change in supply here. We'll find out in the next lecture that for supply to change, we have to have a supply line either shifting out to the right or into the left. When the price goes up or down, we don't shift supply, we simply move along it. And so that is the law of supply at work. So when the price goes up, we move up to the right along the supply line, and that would increase the quantity. And the price keeps rising, then we keep moving up to the right along the same supply line. We can add in Hannah. Hannah looks like it has a little bit more of a higher opportunity cost, so $300 Hannah would not still have a production of 0. At $400 now Hannah would enter the market and make 1, and so $300 Hannah is still 0. And now at $400 Hannah would make 1. At $500 Hannah would make 2. $600 Hannah would make 3. At $7 Hannah would make 4. And again, price is always per unit. So Hannah's pretty consistent, $100 more. After we get to $400, then Hannah will now come in and start producing guitars. Just like Mateo, Hannah's supply is upward sloping. And so we'll put supply H for Hannah. That's an H. Now we can get the market supply if we add the numbers from Mateo and Hannah together. And so essentially, again, it's horizontal summation. So at $200, we have 0 from Mateo, 0 from Hannah. At $300, now Mateo makes 1. Hannah's still not in the market. $400, we get 2 from Mateo. Now we have 1 from Hannah. $500, we have 3 and 2 is 5. $600, 5 and 3 is 8. $700, 7 plus 4 is 11. So now the market starts at $200, just like with Mateo there, and then we go up to 1. So the market is now just Mateo. When we get to $400, now we're going to have 3, and that'll be out there. At $500, now have 5. Right there. At $600, we have 8. And at $7 per guitar, we will have 11 in the market being made. And so the market supply. This is right along Mateo's supply there, and then they branch off. And this is the market supply. Next step is to talk about increased supply and decreased supply. And actually right here we do have an increased supply. When we had just Mateo in the market, that was supply. If you add in Hannah, you can find the market supply has moved out to the right. And right here actually from going from Mateo to the market actually represents an increase in supply. One of our supply shifters, determinants of supply, is the number of competitors, the number of sellers. So if you add more sellers like Hannah into the market, then the supply will move out. and that will be the topic of the next lecture.